Today I'm going to do some work on this piece of Rosemary Bonsai material. I'll do a little bit of cleaning and pruning, maybe a bit of wiring, set those branches up for the future. What's happening, bonsai friends? It's September now and summer happened. It's been a while since I last made a video, so let's do something a little bit different this time. Let's get this rosemary into the workshop and have a good look at it. So the first task is going to be to clean up a lot of this growth. So I'm going to do some cleaning and pruning to take it back to the bare essentials so that we can actually see what's going on with the structure of the movement in the trunk, the primary pieces that we do have to work with, and make some decisions about things like the planting angle and which primary pieces of structure we'll keep and any that we'll remove. So the cleaning process is just about removing the obvious stuff that we don't need, that is just introducing clutter into the mix and hindering us from making the really good design decisions that we'd like to be making. So we'll be removing dead or dying weak pieces, interior growth that we just don't need, branches that are growing in towards the trunk, or downward growing pieces or vertically upward growing pieces that we don't need, and any points where there are 3 or more branches growing, we'll prune to take them back to 2s. So as you can see, I've cut the container back so that we can actually see what's going on, and to some degree I've revealed some of that trunk base so that we can get a reasonable idea on what it's doing just below the surface and what nabari we've got to work with. I haven't taken it back too far, so we're using our intuition a little bit, but it's just enough to know what's happening down there. Okay, so I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to remove this branch here, which is going towards the trunk. I'm going to say that this piece growing down here isn't necessary. We don't need to cascade any further, so that can go. And likewise this piece that's on the inside. Now I need to be careful not to remove too much from the old wood, because I've noticed that rosemary really doesn't bud back from the lignified stuff. It'll only bud back on the greener material. So I'm not going to strip it too bare. That said, a lot of these pieces on the inside are completely unnecessary. So I'm going to take out some of these yellower dying needles, some of these yellower leaves that are going to come off anyway. Underneath here we've got some more downward growing pieces. Some weak stuff on the interior, just to really reveal the structure that we've got to work with. Again, so we're taking out any dead stuff, any obvious downward growing pieces. Cleaning out the crotches where branches are, where new buds are forming in the crotch of multiple branches. Just really revealing that structure that we've got. So in this area we have 1, 2, 3, 4 branches coming from the same position. So I'm going to remove that top piece. I'm going to leave these 3 in place for the time being until I've got a better idea of what is going to go on in and around this area when we have looked at the bigger picture. Let's come in here and have a look then. So we've got a lot of wispy bits just on the inside here that we can get rid of. We know we won't need any of those guys. I will leave some of this interior growth because, like I said, rosemary isn't going to produce buds as far back as this, so I'll stop just about there. So moving on to this area, again we've got a lot of stuff just clouding our view of what's going on here. You can come in quite confidently and clean that crotch out. It's all just wispy bits that we're not going to need. It's all weak stuff on the interior. So we've got a similar situation on this branch where we've got a bottom growing piece, a top growing piece, and we've got the main branch that moves forward. Now I'm not going to keep all three of these. One of them's got to go. And because we have a bit further along, we've got some more upward oriented branches a bit further along, I'm going to remove that upward growing piece. I'll keep the dropped branch for now, or it might just be that we remove it and favour this bifurcation over here. So there's a lot of congestion in this area, so let's just start by taking off some of the weaker inner bits, growing downwards, gives us a much better idea of what's going on. Come in and completely remove that inward growing section. There's an upward growing shoot here and a weak piece on the inside being shaded out from above. Let's also get rid of that guy that's pretty vertical and on the inside. So I've cleaned up that first branch. Haven't done the upper section yet, but I thought I'd pause, grab a cup of coffee, and then just show you the result of the cleaning so far. So hopefully you can see that we've revealed the structure of this branch. You can see what's going on. Made some minor decisions about removing some of these vertical pieces on the inside, and hopefully you can clearly see the difference it's made to being able to see what's going on by comparing it to this upper section, which is still looking pretty green, pretty dense and impenetrable. So I'll get this coffee down me and commence cleaning of the upper section, and then we'll be able to make some design decisions. Yes! Straight away we've got an inwards growing piece right here. We can get rid of that straight away. And we've got a curve. On the inside of this curve is another little piece that we can get rid of. Pull out some of this weaker foliage on the inside so we can see what's going on a bit better. Some of those downward pointing leaves. Another piece on the inside. Take that piece off. Another weaker piece there. With this stronger branch in the same area, we can just get rid of that weaker section altogether. Okay, as we work up a bit, some more pieces on the inside that we're not interested in keeping. Clean out some of these weaker leaves. Get rid of some crotch growth. Some of those dead and dying bits in the weaker areas just there. With that stronger piece here, there's a piece on the back that we won't, on that side that we won't need. And this piece here, that's going nowhere. So we'll just take that off straight away. We have this branch here growing off to the left. Here we have an upward piece and a branch going off to the right. Let's remove that upward piece. Further along we've got 1, 2, 3. So we went left, right. Now we need to make a decision. Do we keep the left to maintain the pattern, or do we remove the strong central piece? In this case I'm going to keep the central piece and we'll remove the right hand side. Further out we've got right, and then we've got 2 at the end. And on this section, see if I can get a good view, we've got 1, 2, 3. In this case I will take out that centerpiece so that we reduce that 3 down to 2. And underneath we've got a weak downward piece here, so that can go. We have a piece of ramification here and a small weak piece here, so let's remove that weaker piece. Then we've got, moving on, we've got a 3, so let's remove the central piece to go down to 2. Now we've gone all the way back to 2s with a nice staggered structure, and that's looking good. Let's pull this piece back into play and just check that that one also it's looking good. Clean out some of these finer pieces on the interior. With this one, cut back to there. My goal isn't to remove all of the inner pieces because I've got to remember that rosemary aren't going to back bud on this old wood. But all the while I'm keeping in mind the general silhouette, and any pieces that are on the inside here, they're never going to be used. We just need some growth out here really. So I can be quite confident that those wispier bits can go. Same up here. So weak interior growth that's nowhere near the silhouette. That can all go. And the same under here, growing downwards and upwards. So I should really tell you a bit about the history of this tree so far. It was growing in the garden when we moved to the house that we're living in at the moment. It's being used for cooking. And there was an incident with an inflatable paddling pool, a puppy and some wind, and I think that's what happened anyway. And it got squashed a bit. And that made me sort of look a little bit closer at it. You know, revealing some of the structure. The top was broken off. I could see that actually there was a bit of interest in there. So when the wife was out one day, in the autumn I decided to dig it up, and she wasn't very pleased about that because, like I said, it was being used for cooking. I suppose it still can be used for cooking. So this would have been the autumn 2 years ago that this took place. I dug it up, I put it into the container that it's in now. We had a horrendous winter that year with, I think it went down to -10, which is pretty cold in the UK, and rosemary is not, in a container it's not that hardy. So it lost a load of foliage, and I actually thought it was dead. A lot of the foliage went black, and so convinced was I that it wasn't going to make it that I took it out of the container to dispose of it, and the roots had white growing tips, which it blew my mind. So I hastily put it back into the container and continued to water and fertilise through that summer, and it absolutely grew away like crazy. So autumn 2 years ago, that summer, yeah, so then we had this growing season, and during this growing season I've continued to fertilise, but I've been trimming it over to try and keep it compact because it will just extend and extend and extend. Yeah, I've been trimming it over to keep it compact, and here we are today. Alright then, so I've finished cleaning the upper section, at least as far as I can go for the time being. Let's have a quick look where we are. So, hopefully you can see a little bit better the kind of structure that we've got, what's going on with this branch, and you can follow the main trunk line around. Because of where it was planted in the garden, next to a fence and some other shrubs, it has grown in quite a linear fashion from certain angles. So hopefully you can see that there's very little movement from this angle, and as you rotate 90 degrees you get a bit more movement. In the base area there's not a whole lot going on. We will have to investigate further when we come to repot in the base. So there's not a lot of clues to be had in the base, other than we've got a fairly meaty piece of wood here, possibly something underneath these stumps. And you'll have to let me know what you think about any proposed front. I think somewhere in this region has some good potential. It takes in the movement of the trunk, a reasonably good base from what we can tell, and we've got some deadwood features. This branch gives us some depth, and we've got some good interaction with the apex, so somewhere in that sort of area. If we have a look from the other side, although you probably can't see very well on the camera, on camera you probably can't tell because of this branch in the way, but we also have some nice movement from this side. The way that the upper section of the trunk moves away from the front from this angle, you get a little bit less interaction with any potential apex from this side. So the combination of the upper section of trunk moving away and the position of this branch, any potential front that we consider will be with this branch to the rear, at least for the time being. Let's prop it up and have a look at any potential changes that we want to make to the angle. So leaning the tree this way, although the trunk does have some movement, it's still quite vertical, and that's exacerbated by the line created by this piece of deadwood here. I suppose we don't really have to keep that piece of deadwood. Changing the planting angle like this, I think, kind of nullifies the movement that we've got in the trunk actually. So doing the reverse, I think that really adds to the interest. Having the trunk move to the right hand side, and then the trunk line comes back. That gives us the potential to add balance to the design if we need to. I just think it makes the trunk line look a bit more dynamic. So although the trunk looks a bit more interesting like this, the apex feels a bit standoffish. So I wonder what would happen so by leaning the tree towards us a little bit, we get a bit more interplay with the depth with this section of trunk coming towards us. The upper area is a bit more engaging. I think that really improves the angle. So if we combine the lean forward pushing the trunk towards the viewer and also pushing it off to that side, we get the best of both worlds with engagement from the apex, some more interest leaning that trunk over. Somewhere around here we can find some good depth changes as well as side to side movement in that trunk line. And I think this is the best of both worlds, but let me know in the comments down below what you think. And then where the front could be. If we come too far around, we start to nullify any movement. The same in that direction. But somewhere I think in this sort of area, it's going to make a really nice print. And I'm actually really excited about this now. I think this is looking really cool.